I still remember that day, the crisp air of late November biting at my cheeks as I parked my car in front of my daughter's apartment. The leaves had turned orange and brown, crunching under my feet, and there was this quiet, almost eerie calm that I couldn't shake. Thanksgiving had always been a special time for our family, filled with laughter, the smell of turkey, and the warm glow of candles on the dining table. But that year, something felt different. There was a heaviness in my chest I couldn't explain, a tension that seemed to cling to the walls like dust. I had been helping my daughter financially for years. She had a good job, yes, but she had always struggled with her spending habits, and credit card debt had been a constant shadow over her life. Over time, I had quietly paid off small amounts, never wanting her to feel embarrassed. But this year, the total had reached $30,000. $30,000 I had saved and worked for, given away in hopes that she could start fresh. I told myself it was love, that this is what parents do. Yet, as I approached her door that chilly afternoon, my stomach churned with anxiety. The door opened, and there she was, my daughter. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Something was off. I could hear it in her voice, a sharp edge I hadn't noticed before. "Hi, Mom," she said, and then paused, glancing away, almost as if she was holding back something. My heart sank. We moved into the kitchen, where the smell of roasted vegetables and pumpkin pie filled the air. I tried to make small talk, asking about work, her friends, the usual chatter. But every time I brought up money, there was a flicker in her eyes, a tension I couldn't ignore. I kept thinking maybe it was stress from her job, or maybe she was upset about something else. I had no idea the storm that was about to break. We sat down for a quiet Thanksgiving dinner. The room was warm, the sunlight through the window casting golden patterns on the table. For a moment, I let myself relax, thinking everything would be normal. Then, as I started talking about the financial help I had been giving her, gently, carefully, hoping to frame it as support rather than control, she snapped. "Stop asking for money," she yelled. Her voice echoed off the kitchen walls, startling me. I froze, the fork halfway to my mouth. My heart skipped a beat. It was the first time she had ever spoken to me like that, the first time I had seen such raw anger from her. The room felt suddenly colder, the light dimmer, as if the world had shifted in that single, terrifying moment. I didn't know what to say. Words caught in my throat. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times in my mind, coming over, seeing her smile, hearing her laugh, maybe even crying together over the past struggles, but never this. Never her yelling at me like I was the enemy. I wanted to explain, to tell her it was love, that I did it because I cared, but the words felt useless against the storm of her emotions. She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me sitting there in silence. The smell of the pie was still there, the sunlight still spilling on the table, but everything felt wrong. My hands shook slightly as I picked up the fork. What had I done wrong? Was helping her a mistake? The fear and confusion twisted in my chest. I wanted to run after her, to apologize for something I hadn't done wrong, to make things right, but I stayed frozen, listening to the distant hum of the city outside, wondering if our relationship had just changed forever. And then, I heard it, a whisper from the other room, almost too soft to hear. My heart stopped. It was her voice, but it wasn't words I could make out. Just a shaky, low sound, like someone holding back tears or a secret. I stood up, moving slowly toward the sound, my stomach tight with dread. What was she hiding from me? Why had she yelled like that? I had no idea, and the uncertainty, the tension, it wrapped around me like a fog I couldn't escape. That was the start of a Thanksgiving I will never forget. A day that began with warmth and hope had turned into something I couldn't explain, something I felt I had to fix before it was too late. And little did I know, this was just the beginning. The real shock, the part that would haunt me for weeks, was still waiting behind the closed doors of my daughter's apartment. I still remember that day, the silence after her scream felt heavier than any noise I'd ever heard. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the fork still clutched in my trembling hand, staring at the doorway she had vanished through. The smell of roasted turkey mixed with pumpkin pie was almost unbearable now, as if it mocked the tension sitting between us. My mind raced, trying to understand what had just happened. How could the person I raised, the one I had sacrificed for, shout at me like I was a stranger? I walked slowly toward the living room, my steps almost inaudible on the wooden floor. Every small creak made my heart leap. I could hear the faint sound of her breathing from her bedroom. It wasn't the steady rhythm of sleep or calm, it was jagged, shaky, full of anger or maybe fear. I paused outside her door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Should I go in? Should I give her space? I couldn't tell which choice was worse. Finally, I knocked softly. "Sweetheart, can we talk?" I tried to keep my voice calm, gentle, but even I could hear the quiver in it. There was a long pause. Then, quietly, she whispered, "Not now." The words were soft, almost polite, but they cut deeper than any yell. I felt my chest tighten, a lump forming in my throat. I had always been there for her, through every mistake, every tear, every sleepless night. And yet, in that moment, I felt invisible, as if all my efforts meant nothing. I moved to the living room and sank onto the couch, staring at the TV though it was off. The sunlight through the blinds created stripes on the carpet, but the warmth of it didn't reach me. I kept replaying the moment in my mind, her face, her eyes, the way she had turned away. I tried to understand, tried to justify her anger, but nothing made sense. My thoughts wandered back to the $30,000 I had quietly paid off for her credit cards. Every sacrifice I had made, every hour of overtime, every skipped vacation, it all felt meaningless now. Then I heard it. A sound that made my stomach drop. My phone buzzing on the coffee table. I picked it up, hoping it was just a work email or a reminder. But the message wasn't from anyone I expected. It was from her friend, someone I barely knew. The text was short, almost cryptic, "You need to see this before she tells anyone." My hands shook as I stared at the screen. What could it be? My mind went wild with possibilities. Was she in trouble? Was it about the debt? Or worse, had she done something I didn't know about? I didn't know what to do. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I also didn't want to push her away further. The apartment felt colder now, the shadows longer, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I sat back, trying to calm myself, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. I thought about all the quiet nights I had spent worrying about her choices, all the times I had put my own life on hold to help her. And now, with one yell, one sentence, it felt like none of it mattered. I finally opened the message. My eyes widened as I read it. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a complaint. It was something far more confusing, something that I couldn't have imagined. It hinted at secrets, things happening behind my back, decisions she had made without telling me. My heart pounded. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't she told me? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? Before I could even think of a plan, I heard a soft noise behind me. A shuffle, like someone trying to be quiet but failing. I turned slowly, my heart in my throat, expecting her to be there. But the apartment was empty. My mind screamed, she's hiding something. I need to find out. And then I noticed it, a small envelope on the dining table, one I hadn't seen before. My name was written on it in her handwriting. My hands shook as I reached for it, a mixture of fear and anticipation curling in my stomach. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. I unfolded it, my eyes scanning the words. My breath caught in my throat. It was a confession, or maybe a warning. Something she had kept from me for months. Something that explained her anger, her frustration, and maybe even the reason behind all the financial chaos. My heart raced as I read the first line, "Mom, you don't know the whole truth." I froze. The room felt suddenly smaller, the shadows closing in. My daughter, the person I had loved and protected all my life, was hiding something big. Something that could change everything. And I had no idea how to confront it, or if I even should. I put down the paper and took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. But the silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, the leaves scraping against the building like whispers of secrets. I knew one thing for certain, that Thanksgiving was about to turn into something I would never forget, something that could either break us or bring us closer in ways I couldn't yet imagine. And then, just as I thought I might finally gather the courage to talk to her, I heard the sound of her bedroom door opening behind me. I still remember that day, the moment I heard her bedroom door creak open behind me. My heart jumped into my throat, my palms growing sweaty as if I had run a marathon while standing still. I slowly turned around, and there she was, my daughter, standing there, her face pale, her eyes wide, but not with anger this time. This time, it was fear. And something else I couldn't quite name, a deep sadness, almost like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Mom," she started, her voice trembling. She took a small step forward and then stopped, unsure. The silence stretched between us, thicker than any wall I had ever seen. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the distant hum of traffic outside, and my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. I didn't want you to find out like this," she whispered finally. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, signaling for her to continue. I wanted answers, but I didn't want to push her away. I had always believed that communication was key, but in that moment, I realized that even when you love someone with all your heart, sometimes words fail. She moved closer, her hands trembling. "The credit card debt, the $30,000 you paid, it's not what it seems." My stomach dropped. Not what it seems? My mind spun. What could be worse than her yelling at me earlier, than the secrets I suspected she had been keeping? "I didn't spend it all on myself," she said, looking down at her feet. Some of it went to help someone." I froze. My mind raced. Help someone? Who? What did that even mean? My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Who, honey? Who did you help?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away, biting her lip. "I can't tell you yet," she whispered. "Not now. You have to trust me, please." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but I also saw the fear in her eyes. Whatever she had done, whatever she was hiding, it had shaken her. I had never seen her like this, so vulnerable, so human, so scared. The room felt smaller, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I sat down slowly on the couch, trying to process what she had just said. I thought about the envelope on the dining table, the note she had written, the words that hinted at a truth I didn't yet understand. It was like staring at the edge of a cliff. You knew the fall would come, but you didn't know when, or how far. I didn't want you to worry," she continued, her voice breaking. "And I didn't want to lose your respect. But things got complicated, and I made decisions I wasn't ready to tell anyone." She paused, and I could hear her swallowing hard. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean for it to get this far." I wanted to hug her, to tell her it was okay, that I loved her no matter what. But I was afraid of what her secrets could mean, afraid of how deep this went, afraid of the unknown. My mind was a storm of questions, none of which had answers yet. And in that storm, one thought kept repeating: how long had she been carrying this burden alone? How much had she sacrificed to protect me from the truth? I reached out slowly, placing my hand over hers. Her skin was cold, trembling under my touch. "Whatever it is," I said softly, "we'll get through it together. I need you to tell me, at some point." She nodded, wiping away a tear that had escaped. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the kind of silence that is heavy but not uncomfortable. It's the kind that makes you realize how much someone trusts you, how much they need you, even when they hide the worst parts of themselves. I thought about Thanksgiving, about the arguments, about the money I had spent trying to help her. And I realized something: none of it mattered as much as the bond between us, the trust we had to rebuild. Just as I started to feel a little relief, a new sound reached my ears, the low vibration of her phone on the table. She jumped slightly as if startled, and I saw her glance at the screen with panic. She quickly snatched it up, covering it with both hands. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, but my heart was racing again. I have to deal with this," she said, almost to herself. Her eyes darted to mine, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. "I can't explain right now. But please, don't look at it." Before I could respond, she turned and walked briskly toward her bedroom, shutting the door behind her. I was left sitting there, my mind spinning, my chest tight. What was on that phone? Who was she hiding from me? What could be so urgent that she couldn't even speak about it? I leaned back on the couch, trying to steady my breathing. The apartment felt alive with secrets, and I could sense that I was on the edge of discovering something that might change everything. I wanted to follow her, to confront her gently, but I was terrified of pushing too hard, of breaking the fragile trust we had just begun to rebuild. And then, the phone buzzed again. This time, the notification came with a sound that made my stomach drop, a message from a number I didn't recognize. The screen flashed one sentence: "You don't know what she's involved in. Be careful." My hands shook as I stared at the phone. My daughter was hiding something far bigger than I ever imagined. And whatever it was about to drag both of us into a storm we couldn't escape. I still remember that day, the moment I saw that message flash across the screen. My heart skipped a beat, my stomach twisted, and I felt a cold sweat prickling my skin. I had always believed that I knew my daughter, that we shared everything. But now, I realized there were parts of her life I had never seen, never understood, and maybe never would, unless she trusted me completely. I sat frozen on the couch, staring at the phone, debating whether to confront her or wait. The words of the mysterious message echoed in my mind: "You don't know what she's involved in. Be careful." Who would send a warning like that? And why? My thoughts spun out of control, each one worse than the last. Was she in danger? Had her choices put her at risk? Or was it something illegal? The fear clawed at me, making it hard to breathe. I tried calling her softly, but there was no answer. I knocked gently on her bedroom door, my hand trembling. "Sweetheart, please, just talk to me," I pleaded. There was silence for a long moment, broken only by the soft hum of the heater and the faint rustling of the leaves outside the window. Then I heard it, a quiet sob. My chest tightened. She was crying, and whatever she was hiding was hurting her deeply. Finally, the door opened just a crack. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes red and glossy. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of her secrets had shrunk her. "Mom. I can't explain everything right now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I promise. I'm not in danger. Not really. It's complicated." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I don't care how complicated it is," I said softly. "We can face it together. But you have to trust me. I need to understand." She hesitated, biting her lip, as if measuring her next words carefully. Then she handed me a small folder, one I hadn't noticed before, tucked under her arm. I opened it slowly, and inside were papers, receipts, and a few envelopes. My hands shook as I scanned them. My daughter had been helping someone I didn't know, with money, bills, and even legal matters. The amount was staggering, the transactions complex, and there were names I didn't recognize. I felt dizzy, as if I had been punched in the stomach. How had she managed all this without me knowing? And why hadn't she asked for my help? Before I could even begin to process the information, she spoke again. Mom, I know it looks bad. I know it seems like I've been hiding everything from you. But I had my reasons. I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to think I was irresponsible. She stopped, swallowing hard, and I could see the tears glistening in her eyes. But now it's too big to handle alone. I wanted to say something comforting, to assure her that I would always be there. But the truth was, I was terrified. Terrified of what this meant for her, for us, and for the life she had been trying so hard to protect. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in with every passing second, and I realized that Thanksgiving, what was supposed to be a joyful holiday, had turned into a turning point in our lives. Then, just as I started to piece things together, I heard a knock at the apartment door. My daughter froze, her face pale. I froze too. We both turned toward the sound, our hearts pounding in unison. The knock came again, louder this time, insistent. It wasn't polite, it was urgent, demanding. Who could that be? My daughter whispered, her voice shaking. She backed away slightly, her hands clutching the folder like a shield. I walked toward the door slowly, trying to peer through the peephole, but the apartment was on the second floor, and the angle made it impossible to see clearly. Mom, please, don't open it, she said, her voice almost desperate. Just trust me. But my curiosity, my concern, my protective instincts, they overpowered my fear. I took a deep breath and slowly unlocked the door, my hand trembling on the knob. The hallway was empty. I looked left, then right, but there was no one there. My heart was racing. Had I imagined it? Or had someone been watching, waiting for us to react? I turned back to my daughter, who was shaking, her eyes wide with panic. Mom, it's not safe, she said, her voice urgent now. They're watching. I think someone knows about what I've been doing. A cold chill ran down my spine. Watching? Someone new? My mind screamed questions I didn't have answers for. The folder in her hand suddenly felt heavier, as if it carried not just paper, but a weight of secrets that could crush us both. I wanted to protect her, to shield her from whatever danger was coming, but I had no idea how. Then, just as we both stood there in tense silence, a faint noise came from the window. A shadow moved across the blinds, fleeting but unmistakable. My daughter gasped. Mom, they're here, she whispered. And in that instant, I realized that Thanksgiving had become more than just a family holiday. It had become a trap, a mystery, and possibly the beginning of the most dangerous chapter in our lives. I still remember that day, the fear that gripped me when I saw the shadow move across the blinds. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure the whole apartment could hear it. The warmth of Thanksgiving, the smell of turkey and pie, it all vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp panic. My daughter clutched the folder tightly to her chest, her hands shaking. She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes, and I realized that whatever secrets she had been hiding were far bigger than I ever imagined. We stayed frozen in the living room, listening. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside, sounded like a threat. The city was noisy beyond the walls, cars honking, voices shouting, but in that apartment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat and the thundering of my thoughts. Mom, they're watching, she whispered again, barely moving her lips. I think someone knows everything I've been doing, and now they're here. I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine. I wanted to ask who, why, what, but I didn't want to frighten her more. Instead, I moved closer and whispered, we'll face this together. Tell me what's happening. Now. She hesitated, tears streaming down her cheeks, then slowly nodded. She sat down on the couch, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world rested on them. I sat beside her, my arm around her, silently urging her to speak. They know about the money, she began, her voice shaking. The $30 is 000, it wasn't just mine. I've been helping someone who is in trouble. Someone I care about. They're dangerous, Mom. And I think they're trying to find out how I've been helping. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Dangerous? What do you mean? I asked, trying to stay calm, though my mind was spinning with fear. She took a deep breath. There's someone who owes me, or who I've been trying to help secretly. I didn't want you involved because I knew it would worry you. But they found out. They know about the payments, about the accounts. And now, they're here, watching us, trying to find me. Her voice cracked, and I could see her trembling. I wanted to reach out, hold her, protect her, but I also knew words weren't enough. I had to think, act, and fast. The folder she had brought with her might be a key, information about the situation, or perhaps evidence that could protect her. I carefully picked it up, flipping through the papers, receipts, and notes. The more I read, the more I realized how serious this was. My daughter had been juggling debts, helping someone else financially, and keeping dangerous secrets from me, all to shield me. Mom, I need you to promise me something, she said, her eyes pleading. Don't tell anyone. Don't contact anyone. Not yet. If they think we're talking to the wrong people, it could get worse. I nodded slowly, my mind racing. I had spent my life protecting her, helping her, and loving her unconditionally. Now, I realized the situation was bigger than anything I had ever faced. I felt a mix of fear, pride, and helplessness. She had been carrying this alone, shielding me, and yet she needed me now more than ever. Just as I was about to ask her who these people were, we heard a sound outside, the softest scratch against the doorframe, almost like someone testing it. My stomach dropped. The hair on my arms stood on end. I motioned for her to stay quiet. We both froze, listening intently. The sound repeated, louder this time, a deliberate, patient scratching, like someone waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I looked at her, my mind screaming for action. We need to lock the doors, check the windows. Someone's definitely outside, I whispered, trying not to panic. She nodded, and together we moved carefully through the apartment, securing the locks. My hands shook as I turned the deadbolt, each click echoing in the silent apartment. The shadows outside seemed to stretch closer, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Then, a sudden noise, something heavy dropped outside the window. Both of us jumped. My daughter's face went pale. They're trying to get in, she whispered. Mom. I don't know what to do. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had faced many challenges in my life, but nothing like this. I had always thought the worst thing would be losing her trust or seeing her hurt emotionally. I never imagined that our Thanksgiving would turn into a dangerous game of fear and secrets, where every shadow outside the window could be someone threatening her life. I picked up my phone to call the police, but my daughter grabbed my hand. No, she cried. Not yet. They'll know. They'll come for me faster if anyone else gets involved. Please, trust me. Just wait. I looked at her, my mind torn between fear and trust. She had carried this burden alone, protected me from it, and now she was asking me to believe her judgment, even when danger was inches away. My heart ached for her courage, but the tension was unbearable. And then, the lights flickered. The apartment went dark for a moment, and in that instant, I knew that someone, or something, was already inside the building. My pulse raced, my breathing quickened, and I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I still remember that night, the darkness pressing in after the lights flickered, the cold air suddenly sharper against my skin. I could feel my daughter trembling beside me, her hand gripping mine so tightly that I worried I might leave marks. The apartment felt alive with shadows, every corner hiding threats that weren't there yesterday. I had never felt such fear in my life, and yet I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My mind was spinning with questions. Who was after her? What could she have done to make someone so dangerous care so much? We stayed crouched on the couch, the folder between us like a shield. My daughter whispered her plan. We need to hide the evidence first. Whatever they want, they can't get it. Not yet. Not until I figure out what's really happening. Her voice was urgent but calm, and somehow, despite the fear, I believed her. I trusted her completely, even though my heart screamed in panic. I helped her move the papers into a small, locked box she kept hidden in a cupboard. Each document, each receipt, felt like a tiny piece of a puzzle that could either save us or destroy us. My hands shook, but I focused on helping her, because in that moment, that was all I could do. I realized just how much she had been protecting me, shielding me from secrets and danger I couldn't even imagine. Then we heard it again, a faint creak at the front door. Someone was definitely there. I froze, heart hammering. My daughter's eyes were wide with fear, but she whispered, "Stay calm, they can't know we're awake. They're watching everything." I nodded silently. Every nerve in my body was on edge. The faint sounds of the city outside seemed distant now, replaced by the tension of whoever, or whatever, was lurking right outside our door. My daughter motioned for me to move to the corner of the living room with her. We pressed ourselves against the wall, holding our breath, waiting. Minutes stretched like hours. I could feel my heart in my throat. And then, a sudden noise from the window. A shadow moved again, closer this time. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just someone outside. Someone was watching us, someone who knew exactly where we were and what we were doing. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Who could be after her? Why? How much did they know? She looked at me, her lips trembling. "Mom, I think they're not just after the money. They're after me. For something I did, to help someone else." Her voice was barely a whisper, but it hit me like a hammer. She had been protecting not just herself, but someone else, someone who depended on her. And now, that responsibility had brought danger straight to our door. I wanted to argue, to tell her we could call the police, to run away and hide, but she shook her head. "No, Mom. If they see us panic, if they know we've called for help, it'll get worse. We need to be smart. Quiet. Calm." I nodded again, trying to swallow the fear rising in my throat. Every instinct screamed to act, but I realized she knew more than I did, and right now, I had to trust her. Suddenly, there was a louder noise, a deliberate knock at the door, 3 sharp raps, slow and steady. My heart nearly stopped. My daughter grabbed the folder again, clutching it to her chest, and whispered, "Don't open it. Not under any circumstances. Promise me." I nodded, though my fingers itched to protect her, to open the door and face whoever it was. The knocking stopped. The apartment was quiet again. My daughter exhaled slowly, though her body still trembled. "They're testing us," she said. "They want to see if we're afraid. They want to know if we'll make a mistake." Her eyes were dark with worry. "Mom, I need to tell you something else. Something you're not ready for." I felt my pulse quicken. My stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "Tell me," I said softly, though every fiber of my being wanted to demand answers. She hesitated, biting her lip, then whispered, "Mom, this isn't just about the money. It's about someone I tried to protect, and I think I might have put both of us in danger without realizing it." I froze. My heart raced. The fear, the tension, the darkness outside, it all came crashing down on me. I realized in that moment that whatever we were facing, it was bigger than anything I could have imagined. And yet, despite the fear, I knew one thing for certain: I would not leave her side. I would face it, whatever it was, with her. Then, just as I started to ask her who this person was, we heard another sound, this time from inside the apartment. A soft, deliberate footstep. Slow. Measured. Coming from the hallway outside her bedroom. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was inside. I still remember that night, the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my daughter's bedroom. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought the intruder, or whoever it was, could hear it. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, to protect her, to call for help, but I knew, deep down, that she wouldn't let me. She had been carrying this weight alone for months, protecting me and someone else, and now it was my turn to stand by her. We crouched on the floor, pressed close together, the folder clutched tightly in her arms like a lifeline. The shadows in the hallway seemed to grow longer, reaching toward us as the footsteps paused just outside her door. I held my breath, listening. Every creak, every whisper of sound was amplified in the silence. My mind raced with questions. Who was out there? How much did they know? And most importantly, what did they want from us? Then, a voice. Low, menacing, and unfamiliar. I know you're in there. I know what she's been hiding. My stomach dropped. My daughter's grip on the folder tightened, her body shaking, but she didn't speak. She trusted me to stay calm, and I forced myself to follow her lead, trying to control the panic clawing at my chest. I whispered, "Mom, stay quiet. Don't move." My daughter's eyes met mine, wide with fear but also determination. I nodded, though my hands were shaking uncontrollably. Whoever this was, they were close. Too close. And I realized, with a chill running down my spine, that we were completely exposed. The hallway was silent for a moment, then the doorknob rattled. Whoever it was, they were testing the door, checking if it was locked. My heart raced. My daughter whispered again, "They're trying to scare us. Don't let them." I nodded, gripping her hand tightly, feeling her trembling against me. Suddenly, the intruder made a sound, a soft, deliberate laugh. It sent shivers down my spine. "You can't hide forever," the voice said. "She knows too much. And now, so do you." My blood ran cold. How could they know about me? About my involvement in paying off her debts? Had they been watching us the whole time? I felt my daughter squeeze my hand, a silent plea for me to stay strong. I whispered back, "I'm here. I won't leave you." She nodded, tears streaming down her face, but there was a fire in her eyes, a defiance I hadn't seen since she was a little girl. Despite the danger, despite the fear, she was standing tall. Then, something unexpected happened. The footsteps retreated slightly, and the voice spoke again, this time from farther down the hallway. "You think you can hide, but it's only a matter of time. I'll be back. And next time, you won't have a chance." The intruder left, or at least moved out of hearing range, but the threat lingered, heavy in the air, as if the walls themselves were warning us. I exhaled shakily, trying to calm myself, but my mind was spinning. Who was this? How much did they know? And what had my daughter done to attract this kind of danger? I looked at her, and for the first time, I realized how much she had sacrificed, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and even physically, to protect someone else. She had carried a burden I had never known, and now it had almost destroyed her, almost destroyed us. She turned to me, her hands still shaking but her voice steady. "Mom, I have to tell you everything. You deserve to know. I shouldn't have kept it from you, but I was scared. I didn't want to put you in danger." I nodded, urging her silently to continue, my heart heavy with anticipation. And then she began to speak, revealing the truth, the full truth about the money, the people, and the situation that had been unfolding behind closed doors for months. Each word made my heart ache, made my blood run cold, and made me realize just how much she had been carrying alone. By the time she finished, the room was silent again. The weight of her words hung in the air, suffocating, overwhelming, but also strangely liberating. The danger was still out there, still real, but at least now I knew. At least now, I could help her face it. I reached out and hugged her tightly. "We'll get through this," I whispered, though my voice shook. "I'm not leaving your side." She buried her face in my shoulder, crying softly, and for the first time that night, I felt a small flicker of hope. But just as I thought we were safe, just as I thought we could start planning our next move, we heard another sound. This time, it was a soft tap, coming from the window. Slowly, deliberately. Someone, or something, was watching us, closer than ever before. I still remember that night, the fear, the tension, the shadows moving outside the window. My daughter and I sat together on the couch, holding the folder tightly between us, both of us too afraid to breathe. The soft tapping on the window continued, deliberate and unrelenting, like a heartbeat of danger just beyond our reach. I could feel her trembling against me, and I realized that we had been living in a storm for months, carrying secrets and fears that neither of us fully understood, until now. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears and determination. "Mom, I'm going to tell you everything. It's time. You need to know the truth." Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight I could feel deep in my chest. I nodded, gripping her hand tightly, ready for whatever revelation was coming. She took a deep breath and began. The $30,000. I didn't spend it all on myself. Some of it went to someone I care about deeply. Someone who was in serious trouble, someone who didn't have anyone else to help them. I tried to do it all on my own, to keep it hidden, to protect you. But things spiraled out of control. People found out, dangerous people. They've been watching, waiting, trying to find a way to get the money and hurt us. I felt my heart tighten. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I whispered. I was scared, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to put you in danger. I didn't want you to see me as weak or foolish. I thought I could handle it alone." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "But I can't anymore. I need you. I need you to help me face this." I pulled her into my arms, holding her close as she cried. I whispered, "You're not alone. I'll always be here. No matter what." And in that moment, I realized that the money, the secrets, the danger, it didn't matter as much as this. As her trust, her safety, and the bond between us. We spent the next few hours carefully planning, going over every paper, every transaction, every detail in the folder. Together, we figured out who was behind the threats and what they wanted. It was terrifying, exhausting work, but it also brought a sense of control, of hope. We were no longer completely at the mercy of the shadows outside. By the time the sun began to rise, the apartment was quiet. The shadows that had haunted us all night faded with the light, and for the first time in months, I felt a small sense of relief. We had faced the fear, uncovered the secrets, and started taking back control of our lives. My daughter looked at me, exhausted but relieved. "Mom, I'm sorry for yelling, for hiding things, for making this harder than it had to be. I was just scared." I smiled softly, tears in my eyes. "You don't need to apologize. I understand now. And I love you. No matter what happens, I'll always be here." For the first time that Thanksgiving, I felt warmth again. Not from the turkey or the pie, not from the lights or decorations, but from knowing that my daughter and I had survived together, stronger than before. The danger wasn't completely gone, but we were ready to face it, together. That night taught me something I'll never forget. Love isn't just about giving money or solving problems. Love is about trust, understanding, and standing together, even when the world feels like it's against you. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you about times you've faced challenges with someone you love and how you overcame them together.